The rancher barely slept that night. The image of the two towering Apache sisters lingered in his thoughts, the way they ate with quiet discipline, the way their eyes held something deeper than hunger. He tried to shake it off as simple curiosity, yet a strange unease tugged at him. The desert wind pressed against the cabin walls, carrying distant coyote cries. He lit a lantern, sat by the window, and stared into the moonlit emptiness, wondering if the sisters had found shelter. A part of him hoped they had. Another part feared the story was far from over. Morning arrived, harsh and bright. The rancher stepped outside with his coffee and froze mid-step. In the distance, a dust cloud stretched across the horizon like a rising storm. At first, he thought it was wind sweeping the desert floor, until shapes materialized, riders, dozens, then hundreds. The rhythmic thunder of hooves shook the earth. His breath caught as realization dawned. Apache, not a scouting group, not a hunting party, something far larger. Whatever he'd done by feeding the sisters had consequences he couldn't yet understand. The riders fanned out into a massive circle around his ranch, surrounding acres of land with silent precision. Their horses stomped and snorted, kicking dust into the air. The warriors sat tall, spears upright, bows drawn, every gaze fixed on him. The rancher had seen Apache before, but never this many, never, a force that could erase towns if they chose. He raised his hands slowly, signaling he had no weapon. Fear coiled in his stomach, but he held his ground. He had acted with kindness, not deceit. That had to count for something. Two familiar figures rode forward, tall shadows against the morning sun. The sisters, they seemed even larger in daylight, their presence commanding the respect of the entire circle. Their horses moved with the confidence of animals used to battle and long journeys. The rancher's pulse hammered in his neck as they stopped a few feet from him. The elder sister dismounted first, landing with a heavy, sure-footed grace. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes sharp and deep held something he couldn't decipher. The younger sister dismounted next, her posture gentler, though her sheer size made her just as intimidating. She approached slowly, studying him with an intensity that caused his palms to sweat. When she spoke, her voice was low and resonant, the Apache words unfamiliar but not hostile. The rancher swallowed hard. He couldn't understand her language, yet something in her tone suggested gratitude as much as caution. She gestured toward him, then to the warriors encircling the ranch. This wasn't a threat, it was a gathering. An older warrior rode forward, marked by feathers, scars, and years of leadership etched across his face. He appeared to be a chief. The warriors parted to make way, treating him with absolute reverence. He dismounted with a deliberate slowness and approached the rancher. The weight of generations. The chief's gaze when he finally spoke in broken English, his words were measured. He explained that the sisters were daughters of their tribe's war leader, missing for days after an attack by a rival band. The chief said the sisters had spoken of a lone rancher who offered food expecting nothing in return. In Apache tradition, such hospitality toward people in distress, especially daughters of leadership, demanded recognition. The rancher felt heat rise to his face. He hadn't done anything extraordinary, yet these warriors had gathered because of it. The chief stepped closer and placed a hand over his own heart, a gesture of solemn acceptance. The rancher bowed his head instinctively, unsure of the proper response but hoping respect translated across cultures. The tension in the air eased slightly as the warriors lowered their weapons, signaling a shift from judgment to conversation. Some dismounted, leading their horses to water, while others remained mounted like silent sentinels. The sisters watched him with a calmer expression now. The younger one approached him again and pointed toward the cabin, asking permission to enter or perhaps requesting a place to sit. He nodded quickly, stepping aside. She smiled faintly, a small gesture, but powerful among so many silent warriors. The rancher breathed easier as she walked past him. Inside the cabin, the younger sister touched the wooden table where she had eaten the previous night. She spoke softly in Apache, tracing her fingers over the surface as if recalling the warmth of the meal. The elder sister joined her, examining the surroundings with quiet curiosity. The rancher stood near the doorway, unsure whether to stay or give them privacy. Then the younger sister turned and tapped her hand over her heart, repeating a phrase gently. He didn't know the meaning, but the sincerity in her tone made him believe it was a blessing. Outside, the chief spoke to the warriors, his deep voice carrying across the ranch. The rancher couldn't understand most of it, but he caught fragments, words like honor, return, warrior, kindness. The warriors responded with a unified cry that shook the ground. Despite his fear, he felt a strange sense of belonging, as though fate had tied him to something larger than his quiet life. For years he had lived alone, believing solitude was safety. Now he stood in the center of 700 Apache, no longer invisible to the world. The elder sister eventually stepped outside and motioned for him to follow. He did, keeping a respectful distance. She pointed toward the distant hills where smoke rose faintly into the sky. She spoke slowly, using gestures to help him understand. Bandits had attacked their camp. Many were injured. Supplies burned. They needed safe ground to gather, regroup, and heal. His ranch, isolated yet fertile, was the nearest safe place. The chief approached again, offering him a choice: let the tribe rest here for a short time, or refuse. The rancher looked around at his land, the fields he had tended alone, the quiet life he had built. Allowing hundreds of warriors to stay could be dangerous, yet refusal felt wrong. He had witnessed their respect, their discipline, and the loyalty they showed the sisters. He stepped forward and placed his palm over his chest in the same gesture the chief had made earlier. The chief's eyes softened. The rancher nodded to show his decision. The tribe could stay. For the first time since sunrise, the tension fully eased. Within hours, the warriors set up temporary shelters with astonishing speed. They built fires, gathered water, and tended to wounded companions. Children arrived later, carried on horseback by returning scouts, their laughter mixing with the crackling of campfires. Women prepared food using what little supplies they had salvaged. The rancher observed from his porch, amazed at how quickly the empty land transformed into a thriving, organized community. The sisters moved among them, checking on elders and guiding younger warriors. Their authority was evident in how the tribe responded. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, casting golden light over the bustling encampment, the rancher felt a tap on his shoulder. The younger sister stood beside him, offering him a small carved token shaped like a mountain wolf. She placed it gently in his hand and closed his fingers around it. The gesture stunned him. The wolf symbol, he'd heard, represented guardianship among many tribes. She spoke softly, tapping her chest again, then pointing at him. He realized she was telling him that he had become a protector in their eyes, even without intending to. The elder sister stepped forward next, offering him a pouch of herbs and dried roots. She explained, through gestures, that these were remedies, gifts of respect. Her expression remained serious, but her posture no longer held suspicion. She pointed toward the camp and then to him, as if assuring him that while her people rested here, no harm would come to his ranch. The chief joined them a moment later, placing his hand on the rancher's shoulder in a gesture few outsiders ever received. Trust had been given. A bridge formed. Night settled over the ranch with a peacefulness he had never known. Fires burned softly, warriors sang quiet songs, and the land felt alive with unfamiliar harmony. The rancher sat by his porch with the carved wolf in his hand, feeling the weight of the day. He had expected a storm of trouble, yet what arrived was a storm of change, one that swept away loneliness and replaced it with purpose. As he watched the Apache tribe find refuge in his land, he realized he was no longer just a rancher surviving in silence. He had become part of something greater. The rancher's breath caught as the two towering sisters approached him with something steady, different, deliberate steps. Gone were the weather-beaten travel clothes they had worn the night before. Instead, each wore a fresh woven dress, decorated with desert colors and beadwork that shimmered softly against their strong frames. Their dark hair was braided with red ochre and feathers, war, signs of honor rather than threat. The rancher swallowed hard, realizing they had come before him not as hungry strangers, but as on. The eldest sister stepped forward until she stood just a few feet from him, her towering height casting a long shadow across the ranch dust. Her eyes, deep and unreadable, held him in place. She lifted her hand again, palm open, neither demanding nor threatening. The rancher slowly matched her gesture, unsure if he was agreeing to something or simply showing respect. Warriors around them remained completely still, silent as stone. The desert breeze rolled through the circle, carrying with it the unmistakable weight of a decision about to be made. The younger sister, just as tall but with softer eyes, walked a slow circle around him, studying him as though weighing his spirit. She paused at his back, then stepped beside her sister without speaking. The rancher sensed no hostility, only assessment, as though they were deciding something far greater than whether he had offended them. His heart pounded, but he kept still, knowing sudden movements could be read poorly. When the younger sister finally nodded once toward her elders in the circle, the warriors murmured among themselves, an ancient conversation without words. The eldest sister finally spoke, her voice low, firm, and surprisingly warm. Her English was rough but understandable. She told him that the meal he had offered had not simply fed them. It had shown honor. In their culture, a man who fed wandering warriors without fear showed courage of heart. The rancher felt heat rise in his chest, unsure how to respond to such recognition. He gestured awkwardly toward his cabin, trying to express humility rather than pride. The eldest sister's lips curled in a faint smile, the first expression he had seen from her. The circle of warriors slowly dismounted, their presence shifting from intimidating to ceremonial. They gathered in small clusters, lowering weapons, removing face paint, and letting the tension ease. The rancher's shoulders dropped slightly when he realized they had not come to spill blood, but to witness something. The two sisters stepped closer, standing like sentinels. The younger one lifted a small pouch, decorated with white beads, and placed it gently on the ground between them. Inside was a folded piece of cloth, woven with black and red patterns. She nodded for him to pick it up, and curiosity overcame his fear. The rancher unfolded the cloth, revealing a symbol of protection. Wolf tracks embroidered alongside a rising sun. He had seen symbols like
Never
it
held
before
one
in
himself.
trading towns, but the sisters watched him closely, searching his reaction. He looked up, confused. The eldest explained that this cloth was an agreement, a sign that he had been placed under their tribe's watch. His kindness had earned him a rare gift, protection from
loneliness,
raids. It was
from
not a
hunger.
treaty. Those were made between nations. This was something more personal, a bond of gratitude. The rancher struggled to find words, overwhelmed by the weight of such a gesture. He stammered that he had only given them food because they needed it. The younger sister shook her head with a gentle firmness, pointing to his eyes, then his hands. She spoke in her tongue, but the eldest translated. She said that many men fed others out of fear or pride, but he had done so without asking anything in return. That made him worthy of respect. The rancher felt his throat tighten. He had been alone for years, and now strangers spoke to him with honor he had never known. The warriors began placing offerings on the ground-painted stones, cured hides, dried herbs, a sign of goodwill. The rancher stepped back, overwhelmed by the sudden abundance. The two sisters watched carefully, their expressions thoughtful. The eldest told him that these gifts were not repayment but acknowledgement. She said their people had lost many things to the desert, to enemies, to time itself. But gratitude was something they never forgot. The rancher bowed his head slightly, trying to steady himself. He had expected danger that morning, yet somehow, he was receiving blessings instead. As the sun rose higher, the younger sister approached his cabin door, glancing inside with curiosity. Her newly woven dress, decorated with turquoise beads, moved gently in the breeze. She asked permission to enter, surprising him with her politeness. He nodded, and she stepped into the small home. She noticed everything: the clean tools, the neatly arranged shelves, the quiet order of a man who lived alone for too long. When she saw the half-finished wood carving on his table, she touched it delicately, then looked at him with an expression he didn't understand, something between admiration and sadness. The eldest sister remained outside, speaking with her warriors in quick, clipped phrases. They seemed to be discussing the rancher, weighing his nature with the precision of judges. When she re-entered the cabin, she noticed the younger one still studying his carving. The rancher felt suddenly exposed. His home had never held strangers, especially not women of such stature and presence. The eldest tapped the carved figure, then asked him who it represented. He explained it was a guardian spirit he had been carving during lonely nights. Both sisters exchanged a glance, impressed by his quiet dedication. The warriors outside slowly began to break the circle, spreading out to rest, talk, or inspect the land. The atmosphere shifted from judgment to acceptance. The sisters stepped out of the cabin with him, their faces softer now. The eldest approached until she stood just inches away, her towering form casting him in shadow. She told him that their tribe had been searching for signs of kindness in the world, and he had offered it freely. Their people valued strength, but they valued heart even more, and he possessed both, even if he didn't realize it. The younger sister stepped closer, placing a feather gently in his hand. It was from a golden eagle, rare, sacred, a symbol of profound respect. She told him it was a token of trust. He felt the weight of it, not in mass but in meaning. To receive such a symbol was extraordinary. He looked up at her towering height, her confident stance softened now by a warmth he had not seen before. For a brief moment, he felt something shift, a connection forming where only fear had existed moments earlier. As noon approached, the warriors prepared to depart. Horses were mounted, gifts secured, farewells exchanged in soft tones. The rancher expected the two sisters to leave with them, but instead, they lingered by his fence. The eldest told him that they would return, not for food, not out of obligation, but because they had more to learn about the man who had shown them unexpected kindness. The younger sister smiled faintly, a warm expression that transformed her strong features into something gentle. She told him not to fear their return. They would bring stories, guidance, and perhaps even friendship. When the final war cry echoed through the air and the riders disappeared into the shimmering distance, the ranch fell silent once more. The rancher stood alone, holding the eagle feather and the embroidered cloth. Yet for the first time in years, he did not feel alone. He sensed that the desert had opened a path in front of him, one that connected his quiet life to something larger, older, and wiser. He looked toward the horizon where the tribes had vanished and understood that this morning had changed his fate forever. Inside his cabin, he placed the cloth and feather on his table with reverence. The sun cast warm light across the gifts, illuminating them like ancient treasures. He sat down slowly, letting the weight of the day settle into him. The Apache sisters, with their towering presence and quiet strength, had not judged him as an enemy. They had judged him as a man, and in their eyes, he had not been found lacking. A small smile touched his lips as he realized something unexpected. He was looking forward to their return.